Hey guys, welcome back. In case you are new here, my name's Vampire Preacher, and I like action figures. I like them a lot. To the point where I love to do unboxings, specifically of my Marvel Legends, because I've got a slight addiction. Okay, I've got a massive addiction to them. But that's alright, because I'm here for you guys as much as I'm here for me. So, let's get into it today. So, last time we were here, months and months ago, like 3 weeks ago, we were here with the Marvel Legends Endgame wave with the armored Thanos figure. Yeah. So, today we're going back in time like we're wearing quantum suits in the quantum realm. We're going to go back to the Infinity War figures. Why would you do such a thing, Vamp? Why, indeed. Well, I'll tell you. Because in the Infinity War figures, we've got our first figure of the day, Proxima Midnight. Now, returning viewers will remember, last time we showed off Ebony Maw. We got Armored Thanos. We've already, in a very long ago unboxing, shown off Cull Obsidian. Which means we are 2 members away from having the entire Black Order. And the first one is going to be right here with Proxima Midnight. So, as you guys can see, for our figure itself, we've got the same window pane that we've always got with every Marvel Legend. We've got our artistic renderings on the sides. On the back, of course, we've got the artistic shot of the figure instead of the now more common artistic rendering of the figure, along with the complete lineup and our blurb about the character. Now, let me give this figure a quick open over here, as I did not open these guys up ahead of time. And let's pull her out and see what we've got. Now, already opening her up, we can see she's a very tall figure. She takes up the entirety of this plastic bubble sleeve here. The backing just has a yellow Avengers A on it with a burst of fire. She also comes with, of course, the Thanos torso for the Thanos Build-A-Figure. Now, we're going to put that off to the side, as we always do, as our last review, at least for the wave, will be of the Thanos Build-A-Figure. She additionally has her odd trident fork thing. We saw her throw this at Captain America, who used it probably better than she did. She also fought against Okoye and Black Widow with it, to mixed results. For the figure herself, I cannot say that she is a big beefy boy, mostly because she's not a boy, but she is a very tall girl. For the articulation on her, I'm just trying to kind of get her into position here so that we can really start getting into how the figure is. I'll be honest, the accessory here, it feels a little bit light, it feels a little bit flimsy, and it feels a little bit flat. It's not round like I thought it would be. It's very two-dimensional. It's very flat. It's very thin. Getting into the figure herself, I'm not going to say she looks 100% screen accurate, but she looks fairly screen accurate, so kudos there. For our neck articulation, she can look down upon all of those that she sees as beneath her, as she should be able to. And she can, let's be honest here, she can barely look up. She's got a little bit of the backwards neck articulation, but not a ton. It's impeded on by this blue hair of hers. For her shoulder articulation, Well, that's a mixed bag if I've ever seen one. She's got better than 90 degrees on her right shoulder, but her left shoulder over here is impeded on by this pauldron here. She does have bicep swivels, which is amazing because it is a female mold, and for once, Hasbro actually gave us bicep swivels and double-jointed elbows on a female mold. Trust me, I'm just as surprised as you are. For her elbow articulation, her joints are a little bit stiff, but once you can get them to go, she can give us that good flex. She's getting better than 90 degrees, and if it weren't for her hair, we could get this to go even greater. At least on her right arm. On her left arm, I believe it's going to be impeded on by... Yeah, I was right, by that gauntlet on her right arm there. That's not that good flex. That's not what we're looking for. Yes, this. No, this. She, of course, has articulation in her hands, but of course, it is the in and out articulation instead of the up and down articulation that we'd prefer to see with a character, especially one using this kind of weapon, so that she could point it menacingly at someone or attempt to jab it into someone. For our waist articulation, we only have a waist swivel, and for that waist swivel, she can go this far forward. Did you blink and miss it? Here, I'll go back. That's it. That is all of the waist articulation we are getting out of this figure. Going back, that's as far back as she's going to bend for you. No more, and not a whole lot less either. She does not have a waist cut here, further limiting her articulation options. While she is a pretty nice sculpt, there are some questionable choices, especially since there's a place right here where we could have that waist cut. For her hip articulation, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. We're actually getting a decent range out of there. She also, of course, has thigh cuts on both of her thighs, double jointed knees, which can go all the way back. Amazingly, Proxima Midnight is more flexible than some of the more acrobatic characters that we've seen. Food for thought. For her ankle rockers, of course she has ankle rockers that have a decent range inward and outward. For her actual feet, she can go to a disturbing degree forward and can go all the way on point back. All in all, as a figure, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I would say it's a... I'm going to give it a 7. I know I give a lot of 7s around here on this channel. I'd give her a 7. She's not perfect. She's not the best articulated figure that we've seen, but she's not the worst either. There are some improvements that could be made, but it's not bad. All in all, it is an alright figure, especially if you're looking to complete your Black Order, which is not going to be an easy task. We'll get into why a little bit later on today with one of our 2 bonus unboxings. Now, on to our next figure. This wave is a combination of both movie-based figures and comic book-based figures. So, we're going to try and split it up about half and half. So, for our next figure, we're going to be going into who they call Serpent Society. We all know it's King Cobra. It's King Cobra. Don't try and lie to us. It's King Cobra. So, King Cobra here is, of course, in our window pane casing with very few accessories. We've got our artistic shot of the figure on the back with our blurb and our remaining figures down there. Let's open him up and see exactly what we've got inside. So, for the figure itself, we've got pretty much all that you see here is all that you get. You're not getting a bunch of extra pieces to him on the inside that were hidden away. We only have the figure himself and the arm of Thanos, which of course we will put to the side for later on when we unbox the Build-A-Figure of the Wave, the Dad Bod Thanos. For King Cobra himself, we've got exactly what you see from outside the case. King Cobra wearing a cape. The cape is, of course, removable with a peg in the back. And we're going to leave that off for the meantime, just so that we can kind of go over everything there is to take in with this figure. And, of course, to make it so that we can kind of go over our articulation. Now, the rest of the hood here is not removable. This is glued to the head, so you can take off the cape, but you cannot take off the hood of the Cobra. I will admit I'm a big fan that they are finally doing Serpent Society members. It has been a very long time since we've gotten anything Serpent Society related, but because of figures like this one and Cottonmouth, and of course in the Endgame Wave 2 we have Rock Python, we are quickly gathering up a Serpent Society. I can't wait until that's all finished up so I can bring it to you guys. Now, enough talking. Let's get into the figure itself. For our neck articulation, he can look down decently well, even though the hood over here on both sides is trying to push his head upward. Looking back, well, that tells you pretty much everything you need to know there. Rip. He can only look this far back without the head coming off the figure entirely. So, not a whole lot of neck articulation. For our shoulder articulation, I'm really hoping this is just tight shoulders and not... Nope, that is it. Ooh. That's all I'm getting. That is as far up as these shoulders are going to go. Now, I will give them credit. The legs and the arms are scaled. They're actually not just printed on, but they are textured scales for them. But that has greatly hindered their arm articulation. He can only go that far up. That is painful. He, of course, has the bicep swivels and the double-jointed elbows, but those double-jointed elbows can only go up to here. Now, guys, that's not the kind of flex you want. We know that already. We know that here on this channel. You want the good flex. You want that good flex right here, the kind that goes all the way. Not this thing. Come on. Come on. Hasbro. You can do better than this. You really can. Now, we do have the hand articulation, which just goes in and out, as he only has two open hands. He can't really hold anything in them. The gauntlets on both the hands, which move around a bit, they are possibly removable, but I'm not sure what the texturing is underneath them. One way to find out. And the hands are not removable. Do not attempt to do that. That's an easy way to break your figure. So, yeah, that is all the arm articulation you're getting out of this figure. That's a little bit painful. Now, we do have an ab crunch on this figure, and he can go... Ow! About as far forward as Proxima Midnight with only an ab swivel. He can go a little bit farther back, but that's not a wonderful amount of range on him. Yikes! Of course, we do have a waist cut on this figure. For our hip articulation, It's alright. It's not fantastic, but it's okay. That's as much as we're getting out of it. Oof! Alright. We, of course, have thigh cuts on the figure, even though these are very tight thigh cuts. Double jointed knees, which can go actually a decent way back. That's fairly impressive. Alright. And we do have boot cuts on the figure as well. A little bit jarring for the boot cut, if I'm being honest. The boots don't even seem to line up properly with the right calf here. Yeesh. They've done some good things with the mold, with the... I believe these are actually just parts reused for the arms and for the legs from the Green Goblin figure they recently put out. But he does need some improvements to be done. The Serpent Society members are a little bit more agile than this figure's letting on. For the ankle rockers, do we not? We do have ankle rockers, thankfully. We only go about that far out, and with a little bit of manipulation, that far in. For his actual articulation on his foot, he can go a decent way forward, and he can go all the way back on point back. All in all, is it a great figure? No. No, it's not. I'll be honest with you guys. He does have a lot of improvements that could be done. King Cobra here, yikes. He is not the best, but if you're a weirdo like I am that likes the B-list and C-list, and let's be honest, your D-list teams, even of D-list teams of villains like Serpent Society, then it's nice that they're putting out, little by little, all of the Serpent Society members. Again, we've already gotten Cottonmouth, we've already gotten King Cobra. Rock Python is out at this moment, and might be in a future unboxing very soon. And of course we had Constrictor many, many moons ago. We have not gotten any of the female members of the Serpent Society, nor have we gotten... I mean, you could use Eel, because I made a figure of him. If you wanted to have a 5-member squad of Serpent Society, you could use Eel. I wouldn't really suggest it, but you can. For the figure, it's a 5. It's a 5 out of 10. It's a passable figure. It's got some design choices that are not the greatest, but it's a figure of King Cobra, so it's nice to have. For our next figure, we are going to go and not feel so good today.
I don't feel so good.
That's right, our next figure that we're unboxing is the Iron Spider Spider-Man from Infinity War. Once again, we've got our window pane on the front, our artistic rendering of the Iron Spider on the side, our press photo of the Iron Spider costume figurine back here, and our blurb and all of the other figures in the wave. So, let's open this guy up and see exactly what we got with our, thus far, only MCU Iron Spider figure. Now, note, they are talking about making another Iron Spider figure in a 2-pack with Iron Man for Endgame. Possibly a more accurate one to the movie, including his legs. Inside the box, we've got, much like the other 2 figures we've unboxed today, what you see is pretty much what you get. Not a whole lot hiding away. We've got the leg of Dad Bod Thanos to be put on our Build-A-Figure for our final reveal of the day. Which he looks like he's going to be very interesting at the end of the day. Inside the packaging, we've got Iron Spider Spider-Man. We've got the same Avengers backing that the others have had. Now, let's get into the figure, shall we? So, for Iron Spider Spider-Man, we've got... How many times can I say Spider-Man in the same sentence? We've got some unique articulation on him, and a very different sculpt than I'm used to. These parts here on his chest are actually not painted on, as I originally thought. If you guys can look and see, they're actually sculpted on. It makes for a very different take on things, but I'm alright with that. I'm alright with them giving us that little bit of extra. You will also notice that we've got the butterfly shoulders on this figure, thankfully, since, in my opinion, every Spider-Man figure should have butterfly shoulders. He is just that acrobatic of a character that without them, you're really not doing him justice. For our head articulation, he can look down pretty decently well and can look up quite well as well. He looks up better than the previous two figures we've seen in this wave. For our shoulder articulation, we're getting there. It's getting close, but it's not quite even T-posing. It's not bad, but it's not great. We, of course, have bicep swivels on each arm and a double-jointed elbow. Let's see just what our range looks like there. And Spidey can give us that good flex. All right. That's what I like to see in my figures. That, well, it's not the good flex, but it's a decent enough flex. Now, a thing of note with this figure is that it just has the standard thwipping hands. It does not come with any extra hands whatsoever, so you don't get the opportunity to change out the hands for a punch, since Spidey does a lot of punching. Even a grabbing hand to have him hold down to some webbing. After all, you need him to be able to do punch, punch, another punch, punch and a kick.
Magic! More magic! Magic with a kick!
With this, he can only thwip. And of course, his thwipping hands are articulated with the in and out, which is pretty much standard on all Marvel Legends, and should be just expected. With those butterfly joints, as mentioned earlier, he can go forward a fairly decent degree with them. He can kind of start to put Thanos in a bit of a chokehold, and that's alright. It's not perfect, it's not wonderful, but it's a good start. As for his backward articulation with those same butterfly shoulders, ooh, now that's good articulation. Now that's what I'm talking about. When he can get into a full-on push-up position, that's good articulation. That's the kind of thing that we want to see from our Spider-Man. For our ab crunch, he can go a decent way forward. The best that we've seen today, but that's not saying much. And a fairly decent degree backward. I will also note that the Iron Spider on here is also textured, and if you look very closely, the suit itself is also textured. It's not just the spider, but the suit itself is textured to be a fabric mesh texture on it. It's actually a pretty nice detail. For his waist articulation, of course, we've got a waist cut there. For his hips, how are we going with our hip articulation? Decent. Decent. It's not fantastic, but it's decent. It's decent enough, I'll take it. We, of course, also have the thigh cuts. Our double-jointed knees can actually give us the kind of range we're looking for. Color me impressed. That's actually much better than I thought it was going to be. For our rocker ankles, please tell me you've got rocker ankles. Pretty, please. He's got them, but I'm not sure he's making great use of them. for the rest of our ankle articulation. He can go about that far forward, but he can go all the way on point back, which is what we like to see when we're doing web swinging with our Spider-Man figures in your displays. All in all, I'd say it's a decent enough Iron Spider figure. I am a bigger fan, of course, of the comic book version of the Iron Spider suit. But if you're looking for an MCU Iron Spider figure, so far this is the only one that we've got. There is one coming out in a 2-pack. I will let you guys know right now there is another 2-pack coming out. But if you're looking to complete your dad bod Thanos, this is the version to get, as that left leg is a lot of money in the aftermarket. Moving on. Since we've talked about Spider-Man, let's talk about a villain, a side villain, from the Spider-Man PS4 game. I'm talking, of course, about Taskmaster. Now, you might recognize Taskmaster from his dealings with Deadpool. You might recognize him from the Spider-Man video game. Or you might just go, who's Taskmaster? Taskmaster is someone with the ability to mimic anything that he sees. He has muscle memory based on, well, he's got photographic muscle memory. It's a really weird power, but it means he can throw his shield like Captain America's shield. He just saw him do it once. He can whip around like Spider-Man after seeing him do it once. He can do anything that is physically possible that does not require mutations. Taskmaster is pretty much an everyman, with one exception. He's an everyman that can also do really heroic things that are like peak of human perfection. So, we've got, of course, our window pane with Taskmaster and our build-to-figure piece in there, our artistic rendering of Taskmaster here, our artistic photo of the figure back here, our blurb, and, of course, the other figures in the wave. Now, enough talking about it, let's find out exactly what we've got going on inside. Inside of here, we've of course got the other leg for our dad bod Thanos. Our casual Friday Thanos, if you will. He's going to be our last figure before our bonus unboxings of the day, which is the whole reason why we're even unboxing this wave, is because of the bonus unboxings. But Vamp, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Why do an unboxing just to let me do my unboxings, alright? I am, of course, kidding. It is because of an exclusive 2-pack that was released not too long ago, which we'll be showing to you today. So, we've of course got the backing with the Avengers A on it. We also have Taskmaster's shield, which is based off of Captain America's shield for the Captain America figures, although it is a very different mold here. We've got the same kind of clip-on system that Captain America's shields have, but it's just purely smooth back here and up here. Normally we get the ridges of Captain America's shield in his shields, but of course, since this doesn't have those patriotic red, white, and blue ridges, we don't have them. We also have Nick Fury's pistol here, the Icer gun, and a sword. All things that Taskmaster is pretty well known for having. Well, he's known for having guns, not necessarily the Icer pistol, which is something that they've been including in far too many figures, when the only person that really has the Icer is Captain America, Nick Fury. The cape for this figure is held down in a very odd way. So, let's pop the head off and try and get this out through the back. That was a lot easier. Should have done that in the beginning. So, for our Taskmaster figure. Now that's a little bit funny. We have the peg in his back where you can put your shield. when he's not using it. However, that doesn't work when he's got his cape, which also uses the same peg in his back. Well, that could be a conflict. Additionally, this belt here for his thigh has already come undone. So let's just move that back up and pray that doesn't keep on sliding. Although that will probably be an issue if you've got him in a display. That is probably going to keep on sliding down on you. If you feel like doing it, you can put a dab of glue on there. I'm personally not going to. So this is a more traditional comic book version of Taskmaster from his earlier appearances. The last time we saw him in this outfit in toy form was... I'm trying to remember if he was a legendary writer or if he was part of a Build-A-Figure. It was back in the ToyBiz days, I will tell you that. Which, it's been a little bit since those days have come and gone. For our figure's articulation. His forward neck articulation, that... Actually, he can go a decent way forward, even though his hood is bunching up down here. For his backward neck articulation, as to be expected, the hood is greatly fighting against articulating any farther back. His hood and his cape are plastic, but they're soft goods plastic. They're not rigid plastic, but they're not as flexible as linen would be. For his shoulders. Ouch! That is all the shoulder articulation we're getting. We're not even T-posing. Ow. Taskmaster, why? We, of course, have the bicep swivels here. And for our double-jointed elbow, that's it. That is all we're getting out of him. Guys, we know on this channel, that's not good enough. 90 degrees is not that good flex. This isn't... That's not this. We're looking for this. Not this. Come on, Hasbro. Come on, Hasbro. Moving on. Amazingly, he doesn't have a wrist swivel, or a forearm swivel here. I would have thought that an easy thing to do, as you could have hidden it beneath the gloves. But instead, the gloves themselves just move, which is kind of odd. And of course, our hands are just the in and out articulation, instead of the up and down articulation. I'd have really thought Hasbro would have had the good sense to say, hey, this character is going to use a sword. Maybe we should make it so he can point the sword at people menacingly. But of course the answer there was a hard no. And we can see the shield just clips on to make for his sword and shield posing here. It's actually a reuse of a sword that we've seen before. This sword was previously seen with the Mandroid Build-A-Figure back in the Captain America wave. I believe it came with Baron Helmut Zemo. Either that or Baron von Strucker. I'm honestly forgetting which of the two figures, as they were both the alternate short packs of of single pack figures that came with the same piece of the Mandroid Build-A-Figure. For our waist articulation, that is as far forward as that ab crunch is going. And are you kidding? That is as far back. That's it. For a character that is supposed to be as athletic, or capable of being as athletic as Spider-Man and Daredevil, that is pathetic. Honestly, you can do better, Hasbro, and you know it. He, of course, has a waist swivel here, showing off all of those pouches he had, but his waist actually just came undone as I did the swivel. That was fun and interesting. quality figures. Hasbro's all about quality figures. Anyway, for our hip articulation, that's all that we're getting out of him. It's not as much as Spidey. It's not even close. It's at least better than King Cobra, so that's saying something. He, of course, has the thigh cuts on both of his thighs. I'm not sure I want to try and spin that too much. After all, last time I spun something, pieces came apart. For our knee articulation, we're going back a decent degree. It's not quite as far as Spider-Man was going, or even as far as Proxima Midnight, but a decent degree nonetheless. We, of course, have a boot cut here. It would be silly not to when he has clearly reused boots. I believe these are Captain America's boots that he's wearing. He, of course, has rocker ankles in said boots, with a decent degree in and out of articulation on them. For his ankle articulation, that's as far forward as you're going. If you look closely, there is a wrinkle in the boot there that makes it so it cannot go any far forward, but he can go all the way on point going back. And for your displaying needs, the Icer pistol here also goes directly into his thigh holster, making it a convenient place to store it so that he can have all of his weapons on him while you're posing him. Takeaways of the figure. It's okay. A scale of 1 to 10, I'd give him an honest 6. He's not the best figure I've felt. He's not even my best figure of Taskmaster that I own. Is he a good enough figure? If you don't have a Taskmaster and you want one to go up against your Spider-Man, or up against pretty much anybody, Taskmaster, being a mercenary, goes up against many people, and has even teamed up with Deadpool in the past as part of the Deadpool Corps. So, he's nice to have. I'm not going to say he's necessary, but he is nice to have. He's a good enough figure. Up next on our block here, I know I said I was going to try and alternate between movie and MCU, but we're going for a theme here at the end. So, before I get to our final figure of the wave, we're going to go with Songbird. Now, Songbird is notably one of the original Dark Avengers. She's a figure I've been wanting a figure of for a very long time. Since Marvel vs. Capcom, not Marvel vs. Capcom, since Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2. That's the one I was trying to say. Since she was a playable character in that, since they had the Dark Avengers storyline and the Civil War storyline in that game, this has been a figure I've been dying to get. Of course, we see our figure on the inside here with the window pane, our artistic representation of her here, and our press photo of the figure back here, with our blurb and our other figures of the wave. Now, people that are paying attention might note that there are 7 figures in this wave, but we're only unboxing 6. The reason behind that is, the last thing I need in my collection is yet another Iron Man. I have far too many of them. I don't need another one. He doesn't come with a build-to-figure piece. I'm not getting him. But it's an MCU Iron Man. I have more MCU Iron Man than I care to count. So, in the actual box itself, we've got a little bit more than it seems. As we've got, of course, the same backing we've had with all of the other figures. But we also have our effect piece here, which we'll get into momentarily. First things first, though, we have our arm of Dad Bod Thanos. Now, I'm going to say this. As I've been putting together this figure, the plastic for him almost seems fake. It almost seems like a knockoff. The plastic's a little bit waxy. The kind that you see when you get knockoff figures that you purchase from China. Let's call a duck here. Having purchased one of them myself, It's the kind that you get from the knockoff figures from China. So, that's not a good thing to say about an official figure. We've got our effect piece here, which is just one solid piece, but it does very nicely represent her powers. With the articulation on the figure, though, before we get into our effect piece, let's take a look and see exactly what we've got. I will say her shoulder piece here is making me... It's making me really wish they went through with their Phoenix Force 5 version of Cyclops, who wears almost the same exact shoulder piece. Really, they could have used this again. But oh well. For our neck articulation, she can look down decently, but the hair up front is making her head poke back up. And for her back neck articulation, that's all that we're getting. You'll notice a running theme this wave of people with lots of hair or hoods that are making it so that they can't really look up or down. For her shoulder articulation, we can get to a full T-pose. That's saying something. At least that's something to take. She does not have bicep swivels, as for whatever reason, Hasbro just doesn't really seem to care about their female figures and making them as articulated as their male figures. So we have no bicep swivels and only single-jointed elbows with her, as we do with most females that are not named Proxima Midnight. So that is all that we're getting out of her. That is it. We're not even getting close to that good flex here. No, we're getting a 90-degree... Nah, that's Hasbro. Give us the strong women. Make sure that they can show us the flex. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for. We do also have, of course, wrist articulation, but it is just the in and out style of wrist articulation. Her hands are very basic. They're just like this. You're not getting them in punching position. There's no alternate hands included with this figure. It's just our flat out hands. I'll also note that her face just has her mouth closed instead of open. Songbird is a character that has she can psionically manifest sounds into physical forms. That's how we get this back piece. She should be screaming like Black Canary, but instead she's just kind of stoic. For our waist articulation, we of course only have a waist swivel instead of a ab crunch on her, because that's just how Hasbro is with all of the female Marvel Legends figures. Her forward ab articulation is about there. Did you miss it? Because that was it. That's it. That's all that we're getting. For her backward ab articulation, that's as far back as she's going. That is the main problem with only having an ab swivel instead of an ab crunch, or, better yet, an ab crunch and an ab swivel, which hopefully we will see coming soon in certain figures. She does not have a waist cut here at all, so that's just more articulation that we're lacking. For our hip articulation, ouch, ouch, that is next to nothing. I really wish that we had better hip articulation here, but that's all that we're getting out of her. We of course have the thigh cuts. We have double jointed knees, which go a decent degree back. They don't go nearly as far back as Spider-Man's or as Proxima Midnight's, but it's a decent enough degree backwards. Do we have rocker ankles here? I'm feeling like we don't. No, we do. They're just very, very tight. We've got a decent degree in and out on those rocker ankles. For our ankle articulation going forward, that's it. That's it. If you blinked, you missed it. That's normal. That's forward. But of course, for the backward ankle articulation here, I was about to say knee. For the backward ankle articulation that we've got, it goes pretty much on point, which will go well with, once we make sure we line up the peg here. If you've got a flight stand, she would do rather well with said flight stand in a flying position, both of the ankles like so. I know she was a Dark Avenger, but I'm pretty sure she was also on the same team as Citizen V, who's... Oh, wow, I just completely blanked on the name of Citizen V's team. And he was in my last reviewed wave. That's gonna bother me until I remember it. So, all in all, as a figure, she's okay. If you're looking for a villainess turned hero, but still a villainess, but sometimes a hero, she's the best representation of Songbird that we're going to find. Because she's the only representation of Songbird they've ever made. All in all, because of the effect piece, I'm going to give her a 7 out of 10. If it weren't for the effect piece looking just so perfect as it does, this would have been an easy 5. The effect piece honestly boosted it up to a 7 out of 10 in my book. Just because it looks so nice, and since the effect piece clips into the back of her, it actually makes it so that no matter what position you put her in, as long as she's in a flying position, it looks good and will support the figure. So, that will work. Now, for the last figure of this wave, you all saw the title of it. You should have gone for the head.
You should have gone for the head.
Well, for the last figure in this wave, we've got Captain America, Steve Rogers in his Nomad costume. We've, of course, got the window pane here with Cap and everything on the inside, which we will get into in just a moment. Our artistic representation of Chris Evans on the side. Our press photo of Captain America on the back, along with our blurb and the remaining figures of the wave. And, of course, when it was open, someone did it with a razor blade to slice open half of this figure's box. So nice of them. Inside of the case, we've got pretty much what you see here. We have one shield for Captain America. We've got the head of Thanos, which we will put on our fully assembled Build-A-Figure now, as that was our last piece. Getting up to our fully assembled Thanos Dad Bod Casual Friday wear, who will be the next figure that we look at. We have 2 extra hands, and of course, our Captain America figure himself. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to be 100% candid. I don't know what kind of contract Mr. Chris Evans has, but there has to be something. Because look at this face. That is not the face of Chris Evans. That's not even close to the face of Chris Evans. That is not Chris Evans' head. Not in any way, shape, or form. I have no idea what kind of ironclad contract that man has. But it's something that's making it so that they can't get his head right, except for in one, and I mean one, representation. and that is the 2-pack from Captain America Civil War that came with the absolute perfect representation of Chris Evans' head. Additionally, for anyone wondering why the super zoom with the fact that he comes with one shield, anyone that's watched Infinity War will remember that in the Battle of Wakanda, when Cap had this shield, he had two shields, one for each arm, not one shield. He has one of the shield that Tony's father made for him. This he has two of, the vibranium shields, and they are not easy to get his hands around. His hand is not wanting to open to grasp this shield at all for me. We will deal with that another time. And of course, he also does not have a back place for said shield. Just saying. Getting into the figure itself, though. For our forward neck articulation. He has the stiffest articulation I have seen. For our forward neck articulation. That's as far forward as we're going. And for our backward neck articulation, he can actually look up with hope, with faith, and with freedom. He can look up and say, America.
America.
Anyway. For our shoulder articulation. Wow. That's actually some of the best shoulders we've seen today. Amazing, since he does have sculpted on armor pieces to his shoulders, he can actually get at least into a T-pose. So that's fairly impressive. Now, he does have bicep swivels, unlike we saw with Songbird just a moment ago. Why he has them and she doesn't? Well, that's up to Hasbro. Especially since these are cut in a very different way than all of the other figures we've seen today. He also has the double-jointed elbows and can flex decently well. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys. Am I going to tell you that he's got that good flex here? Nah. I'm not going to say such a thing, but he can flex decently well. He, of course, has wrist articulation, and it is the in and out wrist articulation. That's what we'd come to expect for a Captain America figure. He, of course, has an ab crunch on him, and our forward range is decent. It's almost along the lines of Peter Parker's. And his backward is actually pretty decent, too. It's some of the best that we've seen today, but trust me, that's not a compliment. Now, we of course have a waist cut here, and if Tony said bad things about his original outfit, this really does no favors to his backside. For our hip articulation. Are we going to move it all on this one? His left hip was completely locked up on me and wasn't moving whatsoever. So that's fun. He's got decent hip articulation. Again, it's some of the best we've seen today, but again, not a compliment. He, of course, has the thigh cuts on him. And the double-jointed knees, which have a fair range of motion. I'm not going to say it's great, but it's a fair range of motion. I'd like to see a little bit better from a character that fights as athletically as he does in the films, but it's decent enough. He, of course, also has a boot cut, as he has separate boots and rocker ankles for said boots. For our ankle articulation going forward and back, that's his forward ankle articulation. Once again, did you blink and miss it? Because that was it. That was it. That's forward. That's normal. Going backward, he can go pretty much on point. So his backward ankle articulation's there, just not the forward whatsoever. All in all, if I'm going to be honest about him, he's an alright figure. This face is going to just haunt my nightmares, because this looks nothing at all like Chris Evans. I don't know exactly what they did, who decided to sculpt this as his face, but that is not Chris Evans' face. I'd almost want to change it out for the more accurate head from the Civil War 2-pack, except he doesn't have the beard. So this is the only way you're going to get a bearded Captain America, as they're not making any other bearded figures of him, not even the Worthy Cap figure, which is a Walmart exclusive out now. Another thing that kills me right here is Captain America has a trigger finger. He has a hand made to put a gun in. Hasbro, you can't give us trigger fingers with the Punisher, but you give us one with Captain America? The Punisher didn't have trigger fingers, and Captain America, who refuses to use a gun, does. Just saying. Anyway, all in all, he's an alright figure. Am I going to say that you need to go out and get him? No, not at all. Honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that he came with Thanos' head and that I found him for half price, I would have never gotten him. I'll be honest, I would have never gotten him. Because I already have the 2-pack from Civil War, and that is my ideal MCU cap. That is the version that I'm going to be displaying, not this one. If I do display this one, it's going to be with the MCU cap's head, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the shield then. Being a decent Captain America, though, although there are things that greatly need some help, like this shield, and the fact there's only one of them, and I'm not going to go to some third-party person on eBay and pay $30 just for another shield. Well, I'll give the figure a solid 6. A better head sculpt and 2 shields could have made this into an easy 9. The body itself, well done. The head, bad form. Bad form, Hasbro. Only having one shield, one, bad form. Now, before we move on to our Build-A-Figure, of course, if there are different hands, we always need to try out the different hands that we're given. So, both of his hands are just closed fists. The thing that kind of irks me is that one of these closed fists has the glove, and the other one, his open hand has the glove. His closed fist does not have the glove. That just seems kind of lazy. I know you would have needed to do extra paintwork on it to put the glove onto the closed fist, but you guys could have done the extra work. You clearly didn't do it in the head. You could have done it in the hand. It's a little bit of extra paint, and it really could have used it. So, moving on to our final figure of the wave. Now, I didn't say of the day, because we're going to have some bonus unboxings that you're not going to want to miss. A couple of them, actually, all of our bonus unboxings are nigh on impossible. Impossible to find without breaking the bank. After all of our bonus figures for the day were Walmart exclusives. And none of them are available for MSRP anymore. Not even close. We're still going to show them off to you. Good luck finding them yourself. It's going to be a little bit tough. But before we get into those bonus figures, we've got our Build-A-Figure. Dad Bod Thanos. Now, I will give him credit. He is a pretty big beefy boy. He is not the biggest and beefiest that we've seen, but he is a fairly big beefy boy. Compared to our Steve Rogers figure, he's fairly imposing. And could make for a very interesting final fight scene there with the gauntlet coming down and Steve holding it back. If only Steve had open hands to hold back the gauntlet, it would have made it even better. Just saying. But let's not get into that. Let's get into our Build-A-Figure Thanos here. So, for our neck articulation, Thanos can kind of look down on those he sees as below him, so everyone, and can look up decently at a grateful universe. For our shoulder articulation, it's decent. We can get him to T-pose. More than I can ask for some of our figures today, but even our Build-A-Figure can T-pose. Unlike Proxima Midnights or King Cobra. Now, he does have a bicep swivel, but only has a single jointed elbow. Hasbro. Come on now. You already know what I'm gonna say here. I'm gonna say that we need Big Daddy Thanos to have that good flex. That's not it. He's not reeling back to punch you with that. And on the gauntlet arm, it's even worse. It's even worse on his gauntlet arm. The one that he's going to reel back to punch someone, namely Captain America. It's even worse. I don't even get how that's a thing. Guys, you can do better, and you should do better. Especially for Thanos. We do have inward and outward wrist articulation. And both hands are caught up in a fist. Instead of having an open hand, I'd have liked to have seen an open hand, and preferably a snapping hand. But we've got what we've got. This would have been perfect as an open hand so he could hold someone around the neck as he's punching them with the gauntlet. That is a very Thanos move to do. Unfortunately, we can't get that. For our waist articulation, we do have an ab crunch on him. Unlike on Proxima Midnight, even Big Daddy Thanos has an ab crunch. For our forward waist articulation, we've got a decent degree forward. It's not fantastic, but it's decent. Going back, he can bend over backwards for you pretty well. Of course, for our waist, we do have a waist cut on him. For our hip articulation, wow, that's some of the best hip articulation we've seen today. That's not saying a whole lot. We, of course, have thigh cuts, as that's where the pieces attach for the figure. We've got the double jointed knees. I'm not having high hopes here. We've got some articulation here. It's not the best we've seen today, but it's also not the worst. So I'll take what we can get here. Finally, we've got our ankle articulation. We do have rocker ankles on him, which is rather nice. For our forward ankle articulation, it's actually going better than Captain America's. And even Big Daddy Thanos can go on point. Or at least mostly. All in all, as a figure, I'd give him... I'm going to give him a 6 again. He's got a lot of improvements that could be made. The feeling of the plastic on here, as I mentioned before, just... it feels like a knockoff, which is sad because all of these are the official figures. None of these were bought third party. These were all bought from stores. At full price. Kind of, sort of, for the most part. Okay, like 2 of them were bought for full price, and then the others were all bought on sale. He should be better than this. Now, they did make a slightly improved version of Thanos for a 3-pack that has Thanos, Doctor Strange with a much better Benedict Cumberbatch head, and a Iron Man with a light-up chest. Not so big on the gimmicks here with the light-up chest. The version from the 2-pack has 2 different heads for Thanos and 2 different hands, but neither of them are the closed fist hand, amazingly enough. You know, the one pose that I wanted to do with him of having his hand up, he cannot even do due to his articulation limitations, which is just plain sad. Like, that's as far up as I'm getting. Oh. Ouch. Now, again, they did improve the 3-pack version by having 2 different hands, but neither of them are closed fists. The only way to get a closed fist is with this figure. Specifically with Songbird and her figure. And they've got 2 different heads beyond that. They didn't make that many improvements. I think they made a slight change to the paint with the 3-pack figure. But for the most part, what you're seeing here is going to be your 3-pack figure with some minor changes. The whole reason why I even bothered to complete Casual Friday Thanos is because I'd had almost the entire wave, because I'd purchased them on sale from Walgreens for about half the wave, and said, well, I'm this far in, I might as well. I was 1 figure away. So I grabbed the last one, and here we are. We have our bonus figures of the day. So we're going to take our casual dad bod Thanos, put him off to the side, as we move on to a different kind of Thanos. A comic-accurate Thanos. This is the, as it says right here, Walmart exclusive comic book Thanos. This was a Walmart exclusive a few years ago, and is the only way to find this particular figure. We, of course, have Thanos and all of his accessories, which we'll get into in a moment in here. A rendering of him from the comics on the side. On the back, we've got just a big press photo of Thanos, along with our tiny blurb. So, let's open this guy up and see exactly what we've got on the inside here. Inside of our packaging, we have a very big beefy boy in Thanos, with a cool space background here. We have an alternate head. Something we did not get for our Build-A-Figure Thanos. An alternate hand that even has an alternate sleeve. And of course, Thanos himself. Now, as I mentioned before, this Thanos is a big beefy boy, especially since he was a single pack figure. Comparing him to his Build-A-Figure self, they're almost the same height. Actually, this version, while he's not quite as tall, is a little bit wider. Now, Some of you out there might look at this and go, well, that's no single pack figure. I got that as a build-to-figure. And you are correct. This is just a repack of a build-to-figure Thanos they had some time ago. That wave had characters like Batroc the Leaper and Hellcat. And there was a Spider-Man, a Hulk, and an Iron Man, and I think even a Captain America. And I wanted absolutely none of them, with the exceptions of, amazingly enough, Hellcat and Batroc the Leaper. I have lots of figures of Spider-Man and Captain America and the Hulk and Iron Man. I do not have any figures of Hellcat nor Batroc the Leaper. So, let's get into our articulation on this guy before we get into all of our goodies on the side. For our neck articulation, I will say he's a little bit wobbly here. But that might be due to this really unique sculpt for his back. Like, this spine is sculpted. That's unique and a bit unusual and a bit unsettling. For his neck articulation, he can go a fair degree forward, and coming backward, he can actually look up with great hope at that grateful universe. For his shoulder articulation, we can get him to T-pose. Now, you will note his chest piece here is a separate entity. So, if you try to T-pose him, it does come just straight off. But, so that you guys can see, that's him doing his T-pose. Now, he also has bicep swivels, although they are a little bit tight here with the sculpting here on his shoulder. He only has single-jointed elbow. Ooh. That's it. That is all we are getting out of his elbow articulation on this figure. What you see here is exactly what you're getting. Actually, since we've got the head off, let's switch it to serious time, Thanos. That is all of our arm articulation that we are seeing. That is it. We are not getting that good flex that we're looking for. From someone like Thanos, you need that flex. For our hand articulation, of course, we've got an in and out hand articulation on both hands, including on our gauntleted hand. For our ab crunch, that's it. That's as far forward as he's going. For reference, straight up, forward, and that's as far back as he's willing to go. That's it. So his ab crunch is pretty much there just for aesthetic purposes. It really has no practical use. It doesn't move at all. He does have a waist swivel, but it is covered up greatly by his belt that he has here, making it a little bit difficult to actually use his waist swivel. For our thigh articulation, either those are really tight or he just doesn't have it. Ow! That is some of the worst thigh articulation I've ever seen, because it's just not moving from here. It's snapping shut instead of moving any further out. He really has no articulation at all in his hips. He does have thigh swivels, double jointed knees, that do not go very far back. That's not even good for a knee replacement surgery recovery. You got to do some more stretching there, Thanos. That's not good enough That's not good enough to be released from therapy. Nah. You could do better than this. He, of course, has boot cuts on him. And as they've been wanting to this whole time, he does have rocker ankles, which have a great degree inward and outward for articulation. His ankles go a fairly decent degree forward. It's not great, but it's not horrific. And he can go on point backwards. All in all, this figure I'm more satisfied with than the Build-A-Figure for our MCU Thanos. Especially since they had the foresight to include a different hand for if he doesn't have the gauntlet, and a different wrist guard to go along with it. That is a very nice touch. After all, the Infinity Gauntlet isn't always going to be on Thanos' hand. It is in other places, and other people have wielded it. So it's nice to have a Thanos with no Infinity Gauntlet, with the option of having an Infinity Gauntlet hand. Plus, the two heads make it so that he's got a range of motion. Honestly, if I'm going to tell you to get any Thanos today, if I'm going to say to you, you've got options. You've got options, we've got Thanos. Based off of the Build-A-Figures that they've released in recent time, if you could only get one Thanos today, go comic book. I know, I'm as surprised as you. Go comic book. He's got the best range of emotions for his head. He's got alternate options for the hand for being both gauntleted and not gauntleted. And when I picked up this figure, it was a single pack for only 20 bucks. It was not a build-to-figure like these two guys. Of the three big beefy boys that are all here, he was the only one that I paid just 20 bucks for, and has the best range of options, the best range of articulation, and the best range of accessories. And that even includes Thanos' little sword here. So, honestly, if I'm going to recommend any one to you guys, I'm going to recommend that you try and find, if you can, the Walmart exclusive re-release of a Build-A-Figure of Thanos. As I mentioned before, he was at one point a Build-A-Figure, and then was not. He became a single-pack figure exclusively at Walmart, but he is very, very difficult to find now, so best of luck. I got nothing else to tell you guys besides best of luck. He's not going to be an easy one to come across. He's not going to be an easy find. I'm not going to try and lie to you guys. He's going to be a little bit tough. Now, I did mention that we've got multiple bonus figures today. And would I lie to you guys? Of course I wouldn't lie to you. Of course I wouldn't lie to you. So, for our final unboxings of the day. Now note, I said unboxings, not unboxing. We've seen Armored Thanos. We've seen Ebony Maw. We've seen Cull Obsidian. We've seen Proxima Midnight. And of course we've seen Casual Friday Thanos. Now by my count, that means that we have 4 members of the Black Order. But we're missing one. And you are absolutely correct. We are missing exactly one member of the Black Order. And that is because we are missing Corvus Glaive. Now, this 2-pack was also a Walmart exclusive 2-pack of Loki and Corvus Glaive. This is the only Corvus Glaive figure they have made thus far, and thus your only way of completing the Black Order is through this figure here. There have been no announcements for a re-release. Nothing at all has been said about this figure getting a single pack. This is it. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, of course, on the front, we've got our window pane showing us Loki, the Tesseract, Corvus's Glaive, and Corvus Glaive himself. We've got our artistic representations of Loki and Corvus on the sides, along with artistic representations of both of them on the back, and a blurb about each of the characters. Now, inside of here, we've got our background, which looks pretty much the same as the previous backgrounds of the entire Infinity War wave. A separate piece of plastic holding Loki's cape, separate from Loki himself. Corvus's, on the other hand, just goes straight through the packaging, as seen here. So, let's pop these guys out of here and see just what we're dealing with. Now, Loki is already giving me a hard time trying to come out of the packaging. So I can only imagine how hard of a time I'm going to have with Corvus over here, who has a far more unique mold. Now, if that Loki figure looks familiar to any of you, then you clearly are a fan of Marvel Legends. Namely, you already have the Build-A-Figure for Ragnarok Hulk. Because you are correct, it's the same figure. But they've done a minor paint job to him. Let's see if we can get this really weirdly shaped cape out of here. Alright. So, let's start off with Loki here, because, of course, I want to lead up to this guy. He is my big want, because he is the last one we needed to get to our entire Black Order. Now, additionally, if you do not have a Tesseract for your display, you don't have the Mandroid Wave version of Red Skull, who came with a Tesseract. You don't have any other version of the Tesseract, which I believe has come out in one other way beyond these two figures. Then you've got a Tesseract to go along with your Loki. So there you go. And of course, it fits in his hand. It doesn't fit beautifully, it doesn't fit perfectly, but it fits. It fits well enough. Fits well enough for us to understand the purpose of it. For our figure itself, that's actually a fairly decent Tom Hiddleston. It's not perfect, but it's fairly decent. We've got... It looks as though he's got better neck articulation than what I'm getting out of him. Come on now. Oof, I really had to try and muscle that to get him to look downward. And he can look up decently well while he's groveling for his life. For our shoulder articulation, it's fairly decent shoulder articulation. I'm not going to tell you it's wonderful, but it's fairly decent. he can't quite T-pose. I'll say that. He's not quite T-posing here. But it's decent enough. He does have bicep swivels and double jointed elbows, and it's looking like Loki's going to give us that good flex we're looking for. Look at that good flex. We're not getting it out of his shoulder here, but we are getting that good flex right here from our boy Loki. Now, he does have in and out wrist movement here. His outward wrist articulation is, of course, hindered by his gauntlets that he's got on, but he still has a reasonable amount of wrist articulation. I'd have preferred if they gave him a dagger so that he could have had a dagger with him. After all, in that scene where he is handing over the Tesseract, he does start stabbing people, as Loki does. But alas, no dagger. I'll try and see if I've got any small daggers that would fit him, but don't think I have any stylized daggers that he uses just lying around. At least not in his size. For our forward, wow! The absolute best waist swivel we've seen today is from Loki. That says volumes. And he can bend over backwards for you. Ladies, he will bend over backwards for you. To an unnatural degree, he will bend over backwards for you. Now, I'm not sure if he has a waist cut here, because I can't see under this soft goods skirt here that he's got. Ah, yes, he does indeed have a waist swivel. For our hip articulation, that's actually pretty decent. It's not wonderful, it's not terrible, it's decent. We've, of course, got a boot cut here. And double jointed knees, which don't quite go all the way back here. He's got some range there, but it's not perfect. Not for someone who's included in the 2-pack because of the time he spends on his knees. You'd think it'd be a little bit better knee articulation, but alas, here we are. He does not have boot cuts, even though he does have separate boots, which is a little bit weird. He does have rocker ankles, though, which go all the way in and all the way out. He's got a fairly decent range forward on his ankle and can almost go on point back. All in all, if, like me, you did not like the blue look of Loki's figure from the Thor Ragnarok wave, and you said, I really want him in his green outfit, minus the fact that he doesn't have his Helm of Thorns to take over the world with, this is as close as we're getting to an Avengers 1 Loki. He's got the green outfit on. It's not bad. Honestly, I'm probably going to replace my Thor Ragnarok Loki with this Loki because it is more of his iconic colors. It's the gold and green instead of that really weird blue that he's only had in Thor Ragnarok. For a re-release of a Loki figure, I really like it. I'd give him a solid 8. He's so far been my winner of the day. And of course, we go to the figure that I've been looking forward to a little bit too much. Corvus Glaive. Now, Corvus is one of my favorite members of the Black Order. We, of course, have his glaive weapon here. And a very his sculpt is very unique. All of it is just super unique. They did a lot of fresh sculpting with this figure. From the weird pointed toes to the unusual knees to his very tall height. Like, he's, much like the rest of the Black Order, he's rather very tall. Comparing him to Loki, he's almost a head's height taller, and Corvus is the smallest member. So, that tells you something. He's got some rather long arms. They're not quite as long as Ebony Maw's, but they are rather long. Before we get into his arm articulation, of course, we always go for the head first. As Thor should have, so shall we. His downward neck articulation. He can actually look a decent degree down. Looking back, actually he can look just slightly back. It's not great. His hood here is really impeding on that. It impedes on his range of motion for his forward and backward neck articulation, but it sure does look cool. For our shoulders, I'm going to guess we're going to get a very similar fate. Yep. His left shoulder is pretty much inoperable because of his cloak. The cloak puts too much pressure on, so this is as high as this shoulder is going to go. His right one only goes to about here. He also has bicep swivels and a double jointed elbow. And he's got that good flex, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. He has that good flex. He's got what we're looking for. He might not have anything in the arm department, but he can go all the way back with that full flex. Thank you. Thank you, Hasbro. Now, he does also have wrist articulation, inward and out. And he has an ab swivel, not an ab crunch. His forward ab articulation is right about there. That's about all you're getting out of it. And back, actually, not getting a bad amount, seeing as how he only has a swivel, and some of the others that we've seen today had a crunch that didn't even go that far back. Now, he does have the waist cut here, which is odd as he has a waist swivel. Most of the time, they cut out the waist cut when they have an ab swivel instead of an ab crunch, so that's unique sculpting. For our hip articulation, best hip articulation of the day is on Corvus Glaive. Even better than Spider-Man, we've got Corvus Glaive. That's just funny to me. We've got our thigh cuts here. And our double jointed knees, which can go all the way back. That is impressive. We've got our ankle rockers here, which have a decent degree in and out for articulation. Forward, though, actually forward he's got a fairly unnatural degree of articulation, and going back, he can go on point. Amazingly, of all the figures we've had today, I'd almost say he's the most articulated one, except Spider-Man also had the butterfly shoulders. Beyond that, Corvus Glaive would have just won. All in all, I'm really happy with this figure. I'm happy with this purchase. He was not an easy one to find. I will tell you guys straight up, I had a hard time finding him. And I always seem to have luck, usually due to the lucky charm that is my amazing wife, with finding figures that are hard to find out in the wild. I couldn't even find him. I had to get him secondhand through an online realtor. Online retailer, even, as I'm not selling a house. And he can hold his glaive in a fairly convincing way. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it's fairly convincing. I buy it. I'm really happy with this figure. And I'm really happy that with this figure, again, the only way you're seeing the entirety of the Black Order. In any form, MCU, comic book, or other. Thus far, the only way that you've gotten to see the Black Order is through the MCU. And through the figures that you're seeing on your screen, mostly on your screen, right now. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The entire reason why we've done this unboxing today, the Black Order. I've been dying to have a complete set of Black Order figures for some time. Since Marvel Avengers Alliance, which, if you guys remember, used to be a Marvel-themed Facebook game where the Black Order was a major part of the storyline in said game. Yes, that's right. I played a Facebook game because it was Marvel. That's how much of a fan I am. Anyway, aside from that being really, really sad, we've got the full Black Order here, with even an alternate version of Thanos, depending on which movie version you want to go with, Endgame or Infinity War. The rest of them didn't have any differences, just Thanos is either armored or not, and lighter purple or darker purple? Who knows? But thank you all so very much for joining me today. It was a pleasure to finally assemble the Black Order in their entirety. I'm really happy about this. I cannot wait to display these guys together. We've got some big beefy boys, some tall girls, some tall thin boys, and whatever weird gremlin we're looking at here with Corvus Glaive. I'm really happy to have them all together. This really makes my day. This is why I collect, is to have teams like this, to put them together, and it's really everything that I'm looking for. Thank you, Hasbro, for making these, for giving us the full MCU version of the Black Order, since we're probably not going to see them ever again after Avengers Endgame. So, thank you guys so much for joining me. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Vamp, what's coming up next? Well, I will leave that to you guys. So, head on over to my Twitter. Vamp Preacher is the name. And let me know, what do you want to see? As we have 3 potential waves to unbox. We have the new Spider-Man Kingpin wave. We have the X-Men wave. With the Caliban Build-A-Figure. Had to remember which X-Men wave we've got already. We've got the Endgame Wave 2 Hulk Build-A-Figure wave all already here, and we already have half of the Molten Man Spider-Man Far From Home wave. Trying to get the remainder of that so that we can be unboxing that pretty soon, but we have 3 full waves. Let me know on Twitter what you guys are wanting to see. If you guys don't let me know, if I don't get a lot of votes, I'm more likely than not going to be doing the Endgame Wave 2 wave, only because we've gotten it in, and I'll be honest, I can't wait to get my hands on the Rescue figure. The Rescue figure, the Shuri figure, the War Machine figure, all of these look fantastic. I cannot wait to get my hands on all of them. So, if I don't get any votes, that's what's going to be the next one. So, thank you so much for joining me, guys. Have a great day. And remember, keep it nerdy.